name is Will Honan. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Director of Marketing here at Highland Green. And welcome to our event today, Highland Green Makes Financial Sense. Every time you see this little emoji in the presentation, that means that's an item that is going to be a handout in a packet of information that we can give you afterwards. What we're going to cover today is low maintenance living, custom homes, cost of living, and how people find an affordable, high quality of life here at Highland Green. We're going to talk about the strength of the community finances. We're going to talk about protection of the appearance and value of the community. We're going to talk about the strength of the Highland Green housing market. And a little bit about how people get from there to here. We're going to talk a little bit also about what Highland Green is not. You know, Highland Green is not a regular neighborhood. It's not a simple condominium development, though it has some lower maintenance aspects thereof. And we're going to talk about how Highland Green is not a traditional or, in fact, a retirement community. Michigan, what does Michigan have to do with Highland Green? Well, this is a Morn and Taipei manatee. And they just recently moved here from Michigan, and that brought us to 29 states and counting that people have moved to Highland Green from, which we at least find to be fairly remarkable. As a matter of fact, from 2012 to 2016 alone, 97 households made the decision to move to Highland Green through either building homes or buying existing homes. 97. So much of those facts are due to what would be unique about Highland Green. In this case, the Highland Green's the red apple. Many of you who've researched a little bit about Highland Green or know about Highland Green may have noticed that our website and our lifestyle newsletters and our blog have a lot of stories, and they're primarily about people. And this quote may reflect why we focus on people. Many people approaching retirement age are thinking not just about where they want to live and what sort of home they want, but also what sort of activities they will do and whom they want nearby. Well, for the last year or so, my wife has been reading this book. My wife and I are in our mid to late 40s. Our son is now gone and in college, and we live in a regular neighborhood, and it's all kind of suddenly passing us by a little bit. All the little kids walking by who used to be my son are now very young, and we don't know anybody, and we're starting to think about a few things, and my wife has been reading this book, Younger Next Year, or was, and had bought me the men's version, a guide to living like 50 until you're 80 and beyond. And finally, I did pick it up, and I'll tell you, it's hilarious, first of all. It's very funny, so that kept me engaged. But what is one of the main points in the book that spoke to me was that as we all get to be 50 and above, that being around other people is going to be more and more and more important. And and that's why we talk about people, and sense of community may be the number one aspect if you ask anybody that lives at Highland Green, or many people who live at Highland Green. Sense of community is a high-level factor in their decision-making and their life. So there's a whole host of activities that go on here at the community center organized by residents and elsewhere. Most activities probably happen outside of this community center. Organized volunteerism, educational, outdoor activities, common interests that people who have moved here from all over the country have found other people of common interests and just do things together. And that's very important. As a matter of fact, you may have seen this photo in some of our ads. Those are actually real people, by the way, if you're at Highland Green. And Chris and Mary are here on the right. They'll actually be here a little bit later. And today's event is about finances. And Chris Meyer is on the Highland Green Finance Committee and has been instrumental in a lot of things at Highland Green. But they couldn't come at the beginning of our event today because they organize a hiking group that goes all over Maine and hikes together. And so that's where they are right now. But they'll be joining us a little bit later. But recently there's been a group that's formed, literally a group, that really represents a lot about what Highland Green is about. And I will reveal to you for the first time off their rockers. You are the first folks to really hear about this. This is a rock band formed here at Highland Green. And I am unofficially or maybe officially their manager. But these are a group of folks, none of whom knew each other just a couple of years ago, or maybe 3 years ago. None of them knew each other. And they've moved here from all over the country, and let me tell you, they are really, really good. Some of them have taken backup music, some of them have played music all along, but it's just jelly. Bob Allen is the captain. Bob is a mild-mannered lawyer in Oakland, California, trying to retire, living here at Highland Green by day, and a drummer by night. Barb Combs is the lead singer. Barb Combs moved here recently from North Dakota. She was an education school dean, and she is terrific. Keyboard Charlie. Keyboard Charlie just recently moved here this year from Harpswell, Maine, and they still have maintained their home in Harpswell, Maine for the summer. Guitar Charlie. Guitar Charlie moved here from New Hampshire just 3 years ago with his wife. I call this guy Don't Mess with Les Borodinsky. Les lives here at Highland Green and is able to work at home. He's a food chemist in Washington, D.C., but lives here at Highland Green and is the bass player in the band. This is Caroline Feely, who lives here, and Caroline's, I half joke, she's my therapist, but she is a clinical social worker and lives here at Highland Green and is one of the backup singers. And Michelle Borodinsky lives here at Highland Green, and Michelle is a master gardener, retired nurse, and a backup singer. And last but not least, the fabulous Carol Davis, a backup singer, is here in the audience, I believe. There's Carol. Hi, Carol.
Yes.
And you and your husband Dick moved here this year.
That's right.
And had explored Highland Green very carefully, and we had some really good conversations about the band yesterday, and I did a photo shoot, by the way, and it's going to be really fun going forward. You're going to hear a lot about this going forward, but you know, how's living at Highland Green for your first 6 months? And you know, you had told me some interesting things about being in a neighborhood like this.
Well, for one thing, by the time we actually moved here, we felt that we were already part of the neighborhood because we had met a number of people going through the process, and people were so open about inviting us to see their homes or have lunch with them or share what their experience was that we never really felt that we were moving away from home. We were moving to a neighborhood of people that we already knew. So the transition was really, really easy in that way. The band has been a real enhancement of that whole community for me. If that is the last thing I thought I would be doing when we made the decision to, there are many, many reasons to move to Highland Green, and we thought of a lot of them, but this one took me by surprise, I have to say. But the funny thing is, we rehearse once a week, and we rehearse at Bob Allen's house. And so you see people from all over the community. Somebody's walking in with a guitar, somebody else has a music stand, somebody else has, speakers or something, and we're all kind of descending on Bob's house. And I thought, this is the neighborhood I never had as a child, where, I'm surrounded by all of these really fun kids who want to do neat things together. And I honestly have never lost that feeling. It's just a way of discovering a lot of new things and connecting with people in ways that you hoped you would, but in many ways our surprises, just wonderful surprises as well. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. And we hear that a lot. We hear that a lot around here. We've worked with 200 households have moved here, and not everyone's going to be in a band, but boy, people do a lot of things together, and it's very gratifying to see people together who didn't know each other a short time ago and enjoying things. Barb Combs emailed me last night after I sent the band some sample pictures, and she said, this sort of activity, off their rockers that is what HG is all about, and what helps us to stay healthy and happy, as well as just gambling. And I got to agree. A little bit more about what's unique about Highland Green before we get to the financial aspects. A little history. John Wasilewski is our founder. John lives in Maine. John has been a leader in the senior housing industry for 30 plus years. John owns Seacoast Management, who has a permanent management agreement with this community. That's who we work for, so we're intertwined and are part of this community. John developed Ocean View in Falmouth in the early 80s when he was in his 20s, which is a full-service retirement community. Later on, soon after that, John developed the Highlands of Topsom, which is also a full-service retirement community. Most recently, John sold the Highlands of Topsom to a really great company from Chicago, and to concentrate on other things and to concentrate on Highland Green. This is Jane O'Connor, good friend of mine. You may have seen Jane facilitating some panel discussions here if you've watched any of our videos. But Jane is a 55 plus housing consultant, works with clients all over the country, and Jane and I have worked together on a few projects, and she's a close friend. But you know, she gives us our guidance on a lot of things, and really full-service retirement communities tend to be needs-driven communities that provide a lot of services, transportation, dining services, and things, and tend to mostly focus on the local market. Jane, nationally anyway, the average age in retirement communities is about 83 to 86 years old. Highland Green is in a different category of the industry called 55 plus lifestyle community. And really, generally, for most people, it's a move of choice. It's sort of a hybrid community, somewhere between a condo development, a neighborhood. It's an age-qualified community, 55 plus community, which means 80% of the households have to have one person 55 or older. A larger scope of geography, where Highland Green anyway is a national destination, and just in the last year alone, people have made the decision to move here who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. So really it's a rich environment with a very wide range of people, which is really wonderful. So we always say, you know, Highland Green really is not to be confused with a typical retirement community. And I'm going to unveil to you today a new version of our logo. We decided to simplify our logo a little bit. And a lot of people refer to Highland Green, at least people who live here, as HG. And you're the first really in earnest to see kind of a little bit of a new look, and this will continue to help differentiate Highland Green from anything else. Back to John and management. John has a permanent management agreement with this community, so this is sort of a marriage, and the team here, all the people you'll meet today and others, we're permanent. We're part of the community, and we have a lot of longevity here, so and a lot of continuity. Real quick location. Obviously, Highland Green is fairly strategically located on the coast of Maine, near the coast of Maine. I'd like to put someone on the spot again, Wimberly, if you don't mind. This is Wimberly Burton and Kathy Glennon, who have recently started to put their plans together to build a home at Highland Green and live down in Haverhill, Mass. And Wimberly and I have had a lot of conversations. And we had a great one the other day about the location of Highland Green. And it was a good refresher for me, actually. But what is it about this particular location that's important for you, and you think for anyone else?
A lot of our friends live in Newburyport area, we live in Haverhill, but more in the eastern part. And so our friends live in Newburyport, Salisbury, that area. And we also have a house up near Blue Hill in Brooklyn. And it's a really good midway part so that we can still stay in contact with our old friends. It's an hour and 40 minutes to where we've lived for 25 years. And to where we also have a little small house up in Brooklyn.
Right.
That's 2.5 hours from here. I also think the other location, having a college nearby, being close to the water, it's just an ideal location for all of those factors.
Yeah, no, I agree. My wife has wanted to move just for a change for a little while. I live in Scarborough, and most people say, "Oh my gosh, you have a hell of a commute." But actually, I can tell you exactly. It takes me because we live right off of the interstate. Highland Green's right off the interstate. It takes me about 29 to 31 minutes. Exactly. But to be able to take a left and head straight up the coast in no time, and to be able to access, like Wimberley said, a college town, and Portland and Boston very easily, and be near shopping, but still have sort of this oasis that's here. Highland Green is its own sort of thing, but nearby anything you'd ever need. And sort of the integration of conservation, ecology, and nature is a big aspect of Highland Green. This is the whole campus, 635 acres. You folks have probably seen this map before, but everything in dark green is conservation land and held in a land trust. Usually I sort of ask why they're asking, and 80% of the time it's because, well, we don't play golf. So that's okay. The golf course is very nice. It's a good amenity here, but it's secondary to why people are at Highland Green. And it's not tied, and this comes into the financial point, it's not tied to the ownership model of Highland Green. It's a separate entity. And maybe when I introduce John Coughlin, we could talk a little bit about why golf courses tied to the equity of your home might not be a good idea in this day and age. I just recently did a fairly informal but accurate survey of the nearly 200 households here at Highland Green that are either occupied or under construction or about to be built. And about 163 households do not have a golfer in, and 35 do. So that sort of bears out what we're talking about. Some of these folks might take up golf. Probably more importantly to many people is the integration of conservation, the trail system, the conservation land here at Highland Green. As well as there is an environmental educational organization that uses the conservation land as a teaching tool, and many people who live here are very involved, including Lisa Durrell, who lives here, who's on the board of the Cadence River Education Alliance, who also is an environmental educator who leads environmental hikes through the preserve for residents who live here. Right, Lisa?
Absolutely. Beautiful place to go. So just
Lisa's educational ambles, right?
it depends each time it's a different name, but they're basically ambles. Enjoying the seasons, because every season is different here. Beautiful.
And in that vein, Highland Green did win 50 Plus Housing Council Award at the International Builders Show for Best Integration of Nature and Landscaping. And there were a lot of communities considered for that. But getting toward our financial aspects, one aspect of Highland Green that is attractive to a lot of people is lower maintenance living. Well, what does that really mean? Well, Highland Green is operated much like a condominium development. Owners are shareholders. They have individual responsibilities, which are mostly inside of the home, mostly. They pay operational fees. They're members of a co-op, and the cooperative as a whole, meaning all the residents, have certain responsibilities. Cooperative responsibilities are mostly for physical structures, meaning the buildings, the homes, repainting, re-roofing homes, replacing walkways eventually, maintaining common areas and lawns and things like that. And there's a ground services division here, which the co-ops have contracted to take care of ground, snow removal, plowing, shoveling, etc. In other words, collectively doing things that allow people to lead a lower maintenance lifestyle, spend more time enjoying life. A little bit more about cooperative ownership. The residents who live here really have a big business. That's what it is. And they have in excess of $76 million of assets. And the residents here need to protect the appearance and value of the community. And that's what the whole cooperative structure is designed around. And this is a little bit of an inside joke here, but I want to talk to you about the magical pile of money. There isn't one. There's resident responsibilities and cooperative responsibilities. So planning and reserve planning to maintain funds that can help maintain everybody's homes here in the future is of number one importance. There are cooperative boards here, which are the governing bodies, which make decisions here. And there's committees that advise in certain ways, finance committees, reserve investment committee, reserve analysis committee. But management-wise, this gentleman here that I'm about to introduce, John Coughlin, is our director of operations. He's our coach, and he's the coach of the community. And John's expertise is in property management and planning. And I drag this photo out every so often just so he can shake his head. John was quite the ball player. Other people will tell you that, not just him, at the University of Maine and beyond. But this is back in Legion Ball, and we love this picture of Jumpin' Johnny because it exemplifies his approach to a lot of things, which is apparently someone sent him around third and the ball was already with the catcher. So what did John decide to do? He jumped over him. So there he is, and that says a lot. Were you safe or were you out?
I was definitely safe, but I was called out.
Now, we have evidence here. The catcher is kind of ducking down. He's still going up, so I think he probably was safe. And the umpire looks really scared.
His eyes are closed, that's why he called me out.
So I'd like to invite John Coughlin up, our Director of Operations, just to tell you a little bit about what he does.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not John Wozaleski. That's the developer. I'm your town manager. Basically, that's what I do. Mr. Wozaleski is the mayor, and I run his show for him. I manage everything on this side of 196. I oversee everything for the developer and the residents. Basically, the residents see me as their association or co-op director. I work with the boards of directors. I use my background to suggest budgets. Specialty is in reserve planning. I was managing gated golf communities in the Carolinas for 10 years, and I got to see how important reserve planning was, not only for the ongoing nature of the community, but to protect your valuations. We boasted here, 70%, the latest figure, of associations in America, co-ops, condos, and HOAs, are underfunded, meaning that somewhere down the line, residents or ensuing residents are going to be hit with a huge assessment. We boast a presence here where we can show you in a plan for the next 30 years and further out if you wanted me to show you, where all those capital expenses are not going to be a surprise. I was told in the Carolinas by my boss, if there's ever any time a special assessment, which is pretty common in homeowners associations right now, you haven't done your job. Financially is the strength of this community. In my opinion, it's the most important thing that you should look for when you're going to move in to an association. You don't want to be bogged down by nickel and dime. You want to be right up front, straight to what you're doing, your operational budget, and your reserve planning. For example, our full-time grounds crew leader was just out on the porch. We are going to stain these decks in your reserves here, I have it planned for the labor to be an outside vendor. About $6,000 or $7,000 to do this. We are now going to incorporate a day here, a day two, with our grounds crew. That's going to save the labor and certainly help protect the co-ops in community. But my job is to work with the committees that the residents elect, the boards of directors, the finance committee, the reserve investment committee, the reserve analysis committee, and so forth. Once you get here, you'll see more of me. In the meantime, you'll see Will and Amber and Brina. And then once you're here, I sort of assume the day-to-day operations. My office is always open. We have an open door policy. We are a skeleton crew here. We all sort of help out each other and make it work. I have never, in all the communities that I've managed, never seen the synergy that I have at Highland Green. I welcome you here. I hope things work out, and I hope to see you as a shareholder.
Hey, John.
Thank you.
Can you recount the story you told me the other day about looking at the window with your wife?
My wife and I happen to have too big a home. My kids are out the door. It takes me forever to mow the lawn. And so my wife and I were thinking about downsizing. Okay? So we went to a local association, and as I'm walking around, I'm looking at the roofs and I'm saying, whoops, 10-year-old homes, I'm looking at the valley of the roofs, and they need replacement, which is typically the biggest first expense for an association. So here I am talking to the board of directors, chairperson, and I'm saying, do you guys, and this is what I always say, do you have a reserve plan? Can I see it? And to what percentage is it funded? 3 critical questions that you need to ask. Most can't do it. He says, well, funny you ask, we do have $3,000 in reserves. And I'm looking around at the 30 units and I'm saying, Karen, we need to leave right now. And so we did. But Will has told me, and you may have seen it in print before, that I think that's the bottom line of a community, their reserve plan. We post it here, and if you're looking around, you ask them those questions. And if they can't produce it, and if they don't show proper financing, leave. Get out of there. It's not where you want to be.
Now, I got one more question.
I was safe.
You and your wife just bought this camp on Belgrade Lake next to your daughter.
We did.
And so, have you done a reserve study on that yet?
I have. And now I thought I was going to work till I'm 70. I'm going to have to work till I'm 77.
Thank you, John.
Welcome.
You might remember this little guy. For those of you who don't have one yet, we have resident handbooks available. Resident handbooks are 58-page documents that have a summary of the governing documents of Highland Green in them. It's not the governing documents. Some folks here have those already. But it's also got a whole bunch of things about protocols and forms and maps about Highland Green. Very, very helpful document. I want to talk to you about cost of living. When people call us and ask us how much the fees are at Highland Green, what they're really asking us is how much does it cost to live there? And we can break that down in many ways. But what we sort of generally talk about is a range of total cost of living. And what we're talking about is about $1,500 to $2,000 a month. It could be a little bit more than that, and I'll talk about what that means. When we say cost of living, we're talking about cooperative fees. We're talking about individually assessed property taxes, and that's a variable because there's a very wide range of homes here at Highland Green. And sort of average utilities in the various sizes of homes, because that's what people look at as generally their cost of living. So I'm going to...
So those 3 items are included in your 1,500 to 2,000?
Correct. That's a global figure. They're not all billed together. I'm just giving you sort of a global figure of cost of living. So I'm going to go through 4 places right now with information provided by the people who live in the homes. This is the smallest home at Highland Green, 1,386 square foot home, 1 floor, 1 car garage. This is a layout of their property taxes, their cooperative fee, their actual utilities and their annual budget cost of living and their monthly budget. Here's a larger home than that with a walkout basement with some finished space called Charming Finch, which is available for sale, and we're going to see it today. You'll notice the little guy there. That means you're going to get a handout. We're going to see this house. But here's the exact numbers, although this number's wrong. That should be 16. But their monthly budget is $1,605. Here's a home that turned over and sold just at the end of last year. Some wonderful new people live there. About 1,978 square feet with a full walkout basement. And here was the actual cost of living numbers, including property taxes, co-op fees, natural gas, electric, water, sewer, and their monthly budget. And finally, here's a larger home, 2,113 square feet, largest of these 4 case studies. And this is another home we're going to see today. And here's the actuals provided. So you can see those homes from about 1,300 square feet to about 21 plus square feet were cost of living somewhere in the 1,400s to 1,800s. So you can see sort of that range. And you can extrapolate from there. If you're going to have a 3,000 square foot home here, you know, really the main variable is going to be property taxes and some average utilities. In that regard, another smiley face, you're going to, in a packet that you can pick up, you're going to get a cooperative ownership financial FAQ and fee breakdown of all the different phases of Highland Green and averages of certain expenses, taxes, utilities, and those 4 case studies. So that should help you continue to understand the cost of living in Highland Green. It is very important to recognize when moving to a place like Highland Green or Highland Green itself, some of the things you're not going to pay for, such as traditional property insurance because your co-op holds a blanket policy on all the structures, or actually individually saving for capital expenditures like painting, re-roofing your home. That's handled through reserves. That's money put away that John was just talking about, and it's John's expertise in helping these folks plan for the future and avoid special assessments. And this community is very strong. Were you to move here now, you'd already be the beneficiary of a lot of planning and money in the bank. And of course, there's a lot of intangibles in terms of lifestyle and your own personal time and the protection of the value of the community that's entailed in the cost of living. This is the Feelies. The Feelies are awesome folks. You might remember Caroline as a backup singer for Off Their Rockers and a social worker and jokingly my therapist. The Feelies moved here to Highland Green nearly 2 years ago now. Hard to believe. But they came into my office one day and there was, after much discussion, there was no question they wanted to move to Highland Green. They moved here from Oakland, Maine. Their number one question was, does it work for us financially? Does it make sense for us financially? They're very careful people. This is Joe with our builder, Dan White. Joe's an architect. So Joe's very detailed. And we built them a wonderful home that we've nicknamed the Sun House, because Joe believes a house should be designed, the whole thing's a sunroom, right? So this is the Feelies' home, and it's really nice. And so Joe came to me just about 6 months ago with an expense comparison. Don't worry, I'll show you the real numbers. It's all very small print here. But Joe came to me with this and said, do you want this? And I read it and I said, absolutely, I want this. And what it was after living here for a year, Joe had done a true apples-to-apples comparison of where they were coming from. They moved here from Oakland, Maine, sold a house for around $300,000, had lived there for a little while, and had projected their cost of living had they stayed in that home for the next year. Their true cost of living. Their projected cost of living at Highland Green, based on information we had provided them, and some other assumptions he'd made. And their actual cost of living after having lived here at Highland Green for a year. So in Oakland, Maine, Joe took into account property taxes, heat, fuel, electricity, insurance, some supplies, some equipment, services, site improvements, and internet and cable. And then he projected those same factors, including cooperative fees at Highland Green. So his projected cost, true cost of living, where they were was about $1845. He had projected about $1903 here. And his actuals after 12 months were $1894. So that was nice to see. And what you can see, there was $9 less than he assumed. So Joe's not only detailed, he's accurate. And that was great. And a colleague of mine made a good point. Oakland, Maine, by the way, the cost of living in Oakland, Maine is quite a bit less than where a lot of our customers are coming from, actually, being a very, very rural area, especially the property taxes. And so what that told me in summary was that here at Highland Green for Joe and Caroline, there was complete transparency. That for them and for many people, moving to Highland Green is really a lateral move. And for the Feelys anyway, they ended up in a better location, in an easier lifestyle. They got more interaction with people, which is part of what they wanted. And they live in a community where the appearance and the value is protected. This is a redacted version of a little study I did on my own home, because I had to have my home painted recently, last year. And I had to replace boards and have caulking and painting, etc. And it cost me just about $10,800. And actually, just Wimberley again, we just had this conversation the other day. Wimberley and Kathy have a house built in 1797 in Haverhill, Mass, right near Newburyport. And you're going to sell it in the spring. You're building a home here, and you're going to have that painted.
Right, it's being painted now, this month, and the paint job probably is going to be about $8,500. Then there's going to be some board replacement, caulking, and all of that. The bottom line is probably going to come out to be about $9,500.
Yeah.
And that's with someone we've used forever.
And that's probably
a good deal.
that's a good deal. This was my cousin, by the way. I don't know if he gave me a deal or not. But so many of you are familiar with that. And the point of talking about that is every 8 years, John,
8.
the co-ops are repainting homes at Highland Green. There's big sections that go every year, and that's handled through reserves. People don't have to write checks at that point. They send someone around to do board replacement and caulk and repaint it, and the average cost across the board is about $5,500. So you live here, you've all got buying power. You know, you actually can save some money in that sense.
Quick question. So I presume if you're painting, you're using wooden shingles and stuff. Why don't you use synthetic?
John?
We've had that community discussion, particularly with the trim, looking at an AZEC product or a hardy plank. The community just feels that they want to stay with a cedar and pine trim. But again, that's an ongoing discussion that could happen. Right now, we're using cedar back primed and pine for the trim.
I think it is an aesthetic thing to the most part, and as long as it's planned and cared for correctly, it can virtually last, forever in a way. So that's the decision that's been made. Interestingly enough, our builder, Dan White, was called in to consult with the co-ops about this because he's been building homes for 30 years, and he's got a very nice home in Falmouth. He's got 5 different products on the outside. He's tried them all, and they all have their pros and cons. So again, appearance and value is number one. And by the way, that's what we feel our job is as well, here, the staff here.
Something, say 20, 25 years down the road, you have seals and windows and stuff like that broken. Is that taken care of in?
The cooperative, as a whole, is responsible for replacement of windows.
Okay.
And John is already helping them plan. They're already reserving for that.
And in something that may happen prematurely, absolutely is covered because we've begun to encumber the funds for those.
Okay.
And this isn't done, some people ask me from time to time, what if I need a new roof? What happens? Well, this is on a planned basis. This isn't willy-nilly suddenly, oh, that one needs it, that one needs it, that one needs it. It's an organized, planned environment, which is nice. Greg and Donna are here. We're building a home for Greg and Donna right now, who happen to live in Harpswell and are building a home here at Highland Green. And there's another little smiley face there. If it's okay with the Barmores, we were going to have us share your floor plan. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Yeah. Something else to look at. We build a lot of different homes here, and you're going to see several of them today. But Greg. I was just going to chit-chat with Greg for a minute because we had lunch the other day and I talked to Greg for, I don't know, we're in there for a couple hours.
You mean you got to talk?
I did. I did. But we had a very good conversation and I ended up taking a good amount of notes actually because I learned quite a bit, and Greg and I have had other discussions along the way. And Greg, you've got a background that I found interesting that sort of put you in a unique position to sort of analyze Highland Green as we and after we designed and presented you with a contract and a price for your home. Can you tell us a little bit about that background that's
Well, they
relevant?
must be referring to the 11 years running GE Capital Mortgage Corp.
Yeah, that was it.
Talking about the value of properties.
Exactly. Yeah, I was taken aback at the time. Greg did run GE Capital Mortgage as the CEO, and you might know that that's about the biggest lending company in the world. So the way that Greg, and an appraisal company as well, right?
Yes.
Big national appraisal company, and I asked him this, and it was a good answer. Before and after the big Great Recession, so a good one. But anyway, the point of that was when I presented Greg, or we did, with a contract, then we went through an exercise where Greg asked for a lot of data from us so he could justify what was going on. Is that pretty much the case?
Well, most 2,500 square foot houses aren't built at the quality level of these houses. And I say that not because I'm a builder. My brother is a builder, and he was building very big houses they designed in Aspen. So he was out, and I said, let's walk through some of these houses. Tell me what I should be looking for and worried about in this construction. So it's pre-sheetrock. My brother, who has never said a good word about any builder in his life.
I can attest to that.
Came out of the building, in fact, he's up here this weekend. Came out of the building and he said, the guy's doing it right. I don't have much to add. We visited with someone the other day who was showing us their Unico system. And he has, I think, the biggest house, yes, his day. Is he sharing?
Yeah, he's in the back.
Careful
what you say up there, Greg.
You told me, I mean, you put a lot of time and energy into designing, heating and controlling your house.
Yeah.
But you told me your electric bill was.
Well, I have solar panels on the top, and we are kind of a unique house because we have 2 living units. The upstairs is a 1,800 square foot apartment for my sister, and my husband and I live downstairs in a 2,600 square foot space. And our electric bill is $12 a month, which is really nice. And I am also a person who enjoys his air conditioning. I keep it at 68, as Donna can attest to when she was here.
I thought he was running a butcher shop.
Yeah, I love it like that. And my heating bill, my most expensive heating bill this year was $271 for the month.
Well, the other thing in that vein,
And that's domestic hot water as well.
What was the cost of the solar to put in? The initial cost of the solar to put in?
Initial cost of the solar, my payback is 6 years, which I thought was pretty.
we're going to talk about that a little bit, solar. But in that other vein, too, that Greg was alluding to, this development is very unusual. You drive in that big, long road, you look at all underground utilities and natural gas here in Maine, and you drive 1.5 miles in, from a main road, and you are on a big ledge. And we don't build homes very, very, very close together. And so we're really spending an awful lot of money to make Highland Green look the way it does with changing elevations. And
So that cost difference was the lot.
That's what makes
Actually creating the lot,
creating
including
it.
everything that goes with it.
And
There's a significant part of that cost difference.
there's a great video, if you haven't watched it on our website. It was done off the cuff. We interviewed Sean Riley, who runs a backhoe and has built all the lots and roads here and grew up next door to this land. And you gotta watch his interview, because not only is he got a great personality and is he very knowledgeable and loves what he does, but he points out some incredible things about the development itself and how different it is from really anything else. So, you know, this is, go ahead.
I'm hearing discussion about architects and plans. So do you offer a limited number of house plans, or are people designing their own?
Well,
homes?
we've evolved. We're designing and building homes for people. Early on in the development of Highland Green, it was standard home styles. Base price, potential option list. And around about 2009, we were able to sort of flip that on its head, because that's not as transparent of a way to build a plan and a house for somebody. But also we were getting into the real baby boomers of the world, who are not going to want to build standard things. So while we do, so basically what's happened is somebody just needs a starting point. We've built a lot of homes. So, for example, Wimberly and Kathy, you know, we looked at a bunch of things and we found Claire's home, who's not here. But
So you're not starting from scratch?
we're not starting anything
We
from.
started from a basic floor plan that was printed up for you all.
That's right.
Here's the selection of, actually I found it on the internet.
So, another example, you saw Joe Feely, the architect customer, sitting there with our builder. Well, you know, Joe built a fairly standard home, but he had started with someone else's house, and he'd made a little bump out. And then along came the Davises, Carol, who you heard from earlier, and they looked at the Feely's house, and they said, that works for us. Well, they bumped the back wall out 3 feet, and they did a couple things. But, you know, it gave them a starting point. So we don't want to start from scratch every time, but we've gotten more and more into customization, which has actually become another draw to Highland Green, basically.
Can I speak to that?
Sure, Dave.
We started off with the idea, we were living in a Hampton model. We decided, renting here before, as we were getting ready to build. We were looking to build that until we walked into Lisa and Ann's house and said, no, we really want Lisa's house.
Yeah.
To which we enjoyed very much, and it's basically your plan. But when we went to the architect, and partway through our process, after we had plans and all these kinds of things, my sister decided to move up to this area. And we decided to take 2 bedrooms and 2 baths upstairs that we built for the kids that probably will never come to see us. We could put them up at a hotel easily. Turn that into living space for my sister. And the architect said, you know, if you move this here and you switch this around and move this out, so for the tune of maybe $2,000, which when you're building a house is not a lot of money, we were able to take their plan, make it fit for Debbie, and make some plans of our own changes. You go in and you definitely know it's a very similar house, but yet they each have their own flavor.
Good taste.
Yeah. and it worked really, really.
And by the way,
Wow.
Dave, you're a really good brother.
Yeah.
We did the same thing. We saw a house plan that we really liked.
Right.
And we just did a few things for our own style of living that made a difference for
So
us.
Amber and I joke, you know, neither of us have ever built a home, or I can't even barely hammer a nail, but we design homes. You know, we just listen to people, and then we're able to.
The flexibility is the best part. You
Yeah.
have guidance, and then Sandra, who oversees the projects along the way, when I'm talking to her, I'm like, I don't know what I want to do for my fireplace, what tile. Well, what are you looking for? And I told her a couple of things. Well, let me take you by so-and-so's home. Let me take you by this person's home, and you can see it while you're in the process of doing it. So fit and finishes are easier too. And subs are great because they'll work with you and they'll remember where they were on a certain house down on Chickadee or Finch or Red Maple. that has something similar to what you're talking about, you can see it in person and immediately put it into your plans. It's a great way to do it.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk about houses in a little bit, so let's hop back on the train here. And I was just going to circle back to management again. And this is John W., our founder, and the big guy. There's John Coughlin, who you met. There's Dave, who you just heard speaking. And the guy on the left, I don't know who that is, but that's in Dave and Andy's house. Nice entryway. That was an innovation that Dave and Andy came up with. You know, they're Ann and Lisa's house, but they've moved the front door over to create a separate entry room. Well, tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with Jean and Rich, who just got back from Ireland on a 2-week vacation. And I'm going to present them with their agreement. But they were visiting, we were driving around, and there's Dave out standing in the front yard of his house. And he said, "Hey, you want to show them our house?" And I said, "Sure," but it actually pretty much cinched their decision to move to Highland Green, because what they needed to know, we could have a house here that we'd like. But they're building Dave and Andy's house essentially, except for without Andy's office space, which is a little addition, and with a smaller upstairs. But it gave them a starting point.
Yeah.
So it was perfect. And by the way, talking about finances today. Rich, the husband, is an accountant. And Rich works for Deloitte. He's trying to retire. He works at home. He's got to travel a lot. And he sat in that room, in our little meeting room here with me, my eyes glazed over, and John Coughlin, who you heard from earlier. And they went through every single number that's involved in the community finances of Highland Green, and every study and reserve analysis and everything else. And of course, Rich is absorbing it all. He knows what to look for. They used to live in a big condo development, in a very high-end one in Connecticut, before they moved to Maine. They live in Windham, Maine right now. And they moved there sort of a little bit naively about how these things operate, believe it or not, you know. And they were specially assessed, tens and tens of thousands of dollars. So he knew how and what to look for here at Highland Green. And then in terms of the marketing, you might understand that I'm marketing Highland Green, but and Amber and the whole team. But Greg and I had a good conversation about that the other day. The fact that this is all we do. And Greg, what did you have to say about that?
Well, my first reaction is, if you live like on an island in Maine, people don't intrude on what you can do with your property, right? So when you come and you look at the co-op structure, and then you looked at the mandatory marketing structure, you can't just get someone else to sell it. You can't buy it from someone else. At first, it caused me pause, but the more I thought about it, 2 things I like a lot. One, nobody can fire sale a house here and trash the value of everybody else's. It's a disciplined marketing process. Well, the fee for selling may be a little higher than the outside world. We're all going to be dead when we sell this house anyway, so I'm not sure that matters so much.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, but she's just going to get another house.
She's going to live longer than me.
Well, and you know, by the way, though it is not governed that way, the real estate commission, it's not a piece of real estate, it's a stock share really, although you have your own home. And you're not going to pay real estate transfer tax to the state. You're not going to pay a lot of other, you know, things that you would otherwise.
Well,
but
the other thing that preserves value, of course, are the reserves.
absolutely.
If you look at communities that aren't well funded, especially in our age groups, you start to see properties deteriorate. And that's the beginning of the end for the value of the community. So this community is well protected in that regard.
Yeah, and we take this as in our role very, very seriously. I mean, that's, in my mind, is our number one thing. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about people and stuff and doing other things, but at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do as well. In that vein, I want to tell you just quickly about Nathan Shipley. Nathan Shipley is an appraiser who's done scores of appraisals inside of Highland Green. for, people are doing construction loans, people are doing equity lines, people are doing other things on their homes here at Highland Green. So he's done a lot, one of the people who's done a lot of appraisals in here. He's a licensed, governed by the state appraiser. And he's sort of, I call him in this, a data geek. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but we trade a lot of data. He's got massive spreadsheets. He tracks everything. He's very technical. And he's been telling me for years that he's working on a paired sales analysis, which I didn't really even know what that was, but it's like, oh, that sounds great. I kind of understand what it is now. From 2008 through 2016, and you know what the trajectory of life has been in that. He's done an analysis of condominium and single family and cooperative housing in Brunswick and Topsom and Freeport and Yarmouth and Highland Green. Highland Green's really its own marketplace. And he plotted things that had sold multiple times and other things. These are just two of a bunch of charts that he gave me. I get it. But he got very technical on me. But anyway, then he sent me a couple reports. And I asked him permission if I could redact some of the quotes from it. And he said yes. Which, by the way, Linda, we talked about this last night. Remarkable that a licensed appraiser would put anything down in writing regarding this. But it's just based on actual data, so that's why he would. Please see the attached long-awaited market paired sales analysis that looks at the relationship between Highland Green and the other residential markets. The rate changes and standard deviation or cluster of data points indicate that Highland Green data is the most consistent and reliable. Our observations of Highland Green being a more stable growth market compared to residential properties outside the campus is verified by the trend lines. The Highland Green housing market experiences appreciation with much more consistency and less volatility than observed in other residential markets. And everything we've been talking about today is basically why. There's more certainty. So, within all that context, we build custom homes. And homes that would not be typical in a retirement community or a attached unit condominium development. We really are custom building homes. Bill and Kay are here. Another nice couple I'm about to put on the spot. Not really put on the spot, but Bill and Kay live in Harpswell, Maine. Another Harpswellian. Is that what they are down there?
That's right.
Okay. And are in the process of building a home at Highland Green. And Bill has his own background, which is sort of relevant to the process of what we're doing. Their home, the foundation's in, the decking's in. I think, is there some framing going up?
Yes, it
We're
is.
working on that right now, and it's been a very detailed process. And Bill, can you tell me a little bit about your background that's relevant to building?
Well, we are in the same category of having a very large waterfront home that if I play my cards right, I get to play golf once a year. So we're interested in changing that. But in terms of background, I'm a professional engineer. I've spent my life as a consultant to corporations, universities, hospitals, governments. We have done a whole range of work through the years, and from historic preservation work to computer chip manufacturing to a number for a broad range of services. So we have, and out of that, I think you experience a number of things about building. And I have maybe not as much experience as some. I've been doing this for 50 years, and I've learned a few things. But I guess the most important two things I wanted to comment on, Will, I think there are two pieces of construction. One is the technical side, and sort of one is the human side. The technical side, as it turns out in most cases, is the easy part. engineering really is very simple. It really is, trust me. That's the easy part, and I think most projects, the human side, not so much. Because the cooperation, the support, the teamwork, the attitudes really turn out to be the key. If you look at 99% of the projects that fail in my travels, nearly all of them are from the human relationship point of view. Seldom do we see technical problems that will stop a large project. And I think that's what has impressed me so much about Highland Green, because Maine is not an easy place to build to begin with. But with meeting people like Amber and her cooperation and attitude, and this is my wonderful chance to tell you how much I appreciate the work that Sandra does. She's remarkable. She really is. So we're lucky to have people like that who are willing to work together. So the technical piece, Highland Green has done a good job of putting together the drawings, the design, the specifications, the estimates, the approval, the vendors, and all the things that go into that. And that system works. And you don't want to change it very much. But more than that, what I appreciate is the attitude of the people. And Will has paid me a lot of money to say this.
I'm about to cry. I didn't know you were going to say that.
He doesn't know that. But Kay and I were commenting the other night. I have yet to meet a person here who sincerely did not want to help you solve your problems, whatever it was. They were sincerely interested in making it work and making you happy with it. And trust me, that doesn't happen very often. So thank you, Will.
Well, thank you, Bill. That's great. I'm speechless. But he's right. The whole thing is about people. I know we overemphasize it, but maybe we don't. And folks who work here, I know, feel incredibly lucky to be around all of the people that live here and are looking here. Because look, we get friends, experts, mentors, you name it. We got hundreds of them. So we're lucky. So financially too, I just want to touch on a little bit about how people get from there to here. You know, most people own a home, and then they're looking at Highland Green. And how do we do all that? Some people buy existing homes, some people build homes, and what have you. What usually doesn't work is sort of, we've decided on Highland Green, we're going to put our house for sale and just wait, see what happens. Because then, you don't know when you're going to get to Highland Green exactly, and you don't know what's going to be there for you. And so 99 times out of 100, people are proactive about the process. And I want to introduce Linda Bernier today, and I'll embarrass Linda by telling her that everybody at Highland Green likes Linda, because Linda has helped literally, over 100 households move here to Highland Green. Linda's retired though, so she can't technically help you move to Highland Green, but Linda was a banker in the area for Bath Savings Institution for how many years?
28.
28 years, and did mortgage lending amongst other things, and helped tons of people move here, construction loans and temporary financing and this and that. And then she was going to retire, and we were all panicking because Linda's the best. And I always said, Linda, when you retire, you're always going to have an office here at Highland Green. Well, turns out not really an office, because her office is like, what, your RV?
That's right.
Yeah. But we've retained Linda as a consultant, and Linda's been able to speak with some of our customers, without them having to go down to a bank and talk to a banker, just somebody who can talk to them. And Linda, what most often are sort of people, looking to find out? This is what I hear anyway.
This is exactly right. I mean, in most conversations, the first thing, people ask is, financially, do I fit in with the other residents? During the discussion, we'll talk about, I obviously don't talk about people's, financial statements, but on average, change, what their income levels might be or their assets might be, so that people start to feel comfortable that, yes, I can move to Highland Green and be active and participate. And truthfully, I've never seen anyone who didn't fit. So, but I think it's just reassuring that that's a question that they, that they have. And then the second question is, how can I own a home like Wimberley in Haverhill? And how can I transition to Highland Green? I haven't sold my home yet. I like to build, and there's just so many options. And again, those are so individualized because everyone has a different situation, and the solutions to that are just as variable. So I don't want people to think that it's a square peg in a square hole, because it's not.
Well, I have a quick anecdote on that note. My wife and I have been looking to move. We're sort of narrowing into what our wants and needs are. Those have been different, and they're sort of starting to do this. And so, but one thing became clear to me anyway, personally, is that I want to buy something before I sell my home in Scarborough, because our house in Scarborough is not going to sell with us in it. We're too complicated. And our house is really small and nice, but people aren't going to be able to see it as well with us in it. It's just going to be easier. But I didn't really know how to do that. I mean, I've been housing industry for a long time, but I didn't really know exactly what that meant for me, because I don't handle our customers' finances necessarily. So at one of our marketing events down in Maine Audubon, I just talked with Linda. I told her, okay, this is our situation, this is what we have, this is what we do. And she said, you can do that, fine. Then I sent her a spreadsheet my wife had made, and that took it to the next level. But the most helpful thing about Linda for me was she came up with an idea. You could do it this way. And that way I could go down to Bass Savings armed with that suggestion, which was, a little bit of a curveball for the bank. Well, not a curveball, but just off the beaten track just a little bit. And, Linda suggested this. And all that Tyler or Betsy has to do, or Rebecca, is run that up the flagpole to Sherry, and who said, well, that makes sense. And so off we are and running. So anyway.
But there's just so many options, whether someone has an investment portfolio that they don't want to liquidate. Maybe there's a possibility of borrowing against that for a bridge loan, or taking out a true bridge loan where they have equity in their home and they can build here. You have one loan that kind of bridges that equity to preserve your investment, so you're not paying capital gains. So just so many variables that I'm happy to talk with anyone about how you would structure, or what's the best way to structure getting to Highland Green.
Yeah, over the last 4 or 5 months, Linda's met with 3, 4, 5 of our customers just to chit-chat and make those sort of suggestions, or just to help people feel comfortable. Oh, yeah, okay, I fit in, or what have you. And she hasn't sent us a bill yet, so.
It'll come.
Okay.
She'll pull up in the RV.
A new one. No, I bought a new one last week.
By the way, Bath is a great institution to deal with. Our whole construction loan 24 years ago on Dingley Island was Sherry Tremblay when she was a loan officer. And we were building something there was no comps for.
Yep.
And they were able to make it all happen. They got all their money back now. Yeah.
Thanks to Donna, right?
Yeah, thanks to Donna. She said, we're too old to have a mortgage.